I have no idea how I went down this rabbit hole. I was cleaning up the lab area, and I ran across a 5.25 media case, and lo and behold, I saw Turbo Pascal 5.5. So this would have been a typical homework assignment back in 1990 in engineering school. You'd get a couple of pages like this with some tasks, and you'd need to write a program to solve the problems, and you might even have the answers. So you'd be on the hook to deliver something that answered these problems. And you can see here in the engineering department, it was strict. Only programs written in Fortran are acceptable. And so the basic approach there would be that I would use my PC to, if it was easy enough for it to run on the 286, I would write an SPF PC, which was an editor that matched ISPF on the mainframe, or the IBM Mini. And I would use RM Fortran, Ryan McFarlane Fortran, to compile it. So this was an editor that mimicked a mainframe editor, which if I had to resort to using the mainframe to solve one of these homework problems, I could export a file that I could upload to the IBM on campus. And the Ryan McFarlane Fortran compiler was free for us to use and install on the PC. You would use that Fortran compiler and P-Link 86, build your program and run it from the command line, but you would edit it in SPF PC, which was just a complete dumb editor, but the file format that it produced allowed me to test it, at least on my computer, on my 286 at home, and then if necessary, if it wasn't going to run in time for me to get my homework done, then I would connect via modem, upload the SPF file, then run it that way. And I did a lot of things like that. Most of my Fortran programs were that way. And so, like this homework for Astro 2, sometimes I wound up having, if the gateway wasn't working, I would actually print. I had a Panasonic KXP 1126 dot matrix printer. I would write the Fortran program. I would also print it out, because there were some times when the gateway was down and you couldn't get logged into the mainframe, and you'd have to print it out, find an IBM 3270 terminal that was free, and you might have to retype this program in, which it's not a whole lot. But keep in mind that the way you submitted these programs was that you wrote them and then submitted a job through job control language, and then and only then did you figure out that you had some sort of problem. Because ultimately you'd be looking to turn these answers in. Your program listing and your output would have been your what you need to turn in for your homework. And in this case, I distinctly remember running this program, because it took about 3 days to run a Runga-Kutta Taylor series like this, because that's what this basically ultimately is like iterating through a Taylor series somewhere down in here to get this done. and it took my 286 about 3 or 4 days. So basically I had to configure to, at the end of when I got this, to print out the program and print out the output. And I distinctly remember my printer was loud, and it would it turned on about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Started printing this out, and luckily it was I think it was right. I'm not sure. It may not have been. It may have been the reason I have this printout is that it was wrong, and because there's no markings on it like it was turned in. So I'll bet you this run was wrong, and I had to go back and redo it. Now the math department didn't have that hard requirement for Fortran, which is where I got to use Turbo Pascal, which with more kind of, I guess, generic numerical analysis, which I took 2 graduate level numerical analysis courses where Pascal was an option, which was really nice because, as I remember it, having a debugger for these iterative processes was just golden. And I guess that's why I have so many fond memories of Turbo Pascal, is because this type of workflow was very painful. SPF PC was not the best editor in the world. In fact, I'd be willing to bet some of you would have used VI before and cursed that, but SPF PC was somewhere below that. I mean, I'd have to go back and look. There again, I'm going back, closing in on 30 years ago, and so it's hard for me to remember just what's what. And that's the reason I wanted to go back and look at Turbo Pascal and try to get something rolling in there to see how it plays right now, see how it plays in 2024 versus 1989. I don't have a whole lot of time to spend on it. It's kind of a rabbit hole for me. So let's do something that you do in maybe high school physics, like two-body problem. Actually Google the whole thing, but How much fun would that be? So the Earth is 5.97219 times 10 to the 24th Canadian. And the Moon is 7.3476739 times 10 to the 22nd Canadian. All right, so we're going to need those as constants in our program. I think that's it. Okay, so first thing I had to do was find the installation files for Turbo Pascal. I had those 5 1/4 discs, but I have no disk drive whatsoever. I can pull them off. And I really couldn't find it anywhere. And I just happened on an old DOS backup that I found, and I was able to move it over onto the Linux workstation. And it was disk 1 and disk 2, but I know my installation disk that I found had 4 disks. But this looked like everything. First thing I had to do was find the installation files for Turbo Pascal. I had those 5 1/4 discs, but I have no disk drive whatsoever. I can pull them off. And I really couldn't find it anywhere. And I just happened on an old DOS backup that I found, and I was able to move it over onto the Linux workstation. And it was disk 1 and disk 2, but I know my installation disk that I found had 4 disks. But this looked like everything. So I went into DOSBox to install this at first, and I hit a problem when I was prompted to switch disks. So what I ultimately did, I created a different directory with the files and just pulled everything together into from both disks into one folder. And what that allowed me to do was when I ran DOSBox, I was able to map the A drive to that. So let's see, that was DOS progs. All right, now I want to go to A. All right. Oops. So I can mount that drive now, and I can install it to that. So I can run the installer now. So my source will be A. Install it on our drive. C. Start installation. Okay. So to get past this, I had to do a little trick and go ahead and there's something not quite right here. So I just manually, so I'm bored out of here, and so I'm going to manually copy what was it, unpack.com to C pp/unpack.com. All right, let's try it again. See, enter, go over with A, install. Maybe that's got us going now. So I'll really only hit that one little stinker there to and to get me past that, I just copied unpack.com over to the installation directory. That looks like that got us out of trouble. So let's swing over there and see what that looks like. All right, so we'll switch to the C drive. All right, looks like it's there. And there it is. So that definitely got us running, ready to start writing our program. Once you've installed DOSBox from the snap, you can just go to the command line and type DOSBox X, and that will run it. Then once you have DOSBox running, you can actually mount your drives. So we already had our A drive mounted. We've got everything installed, so I can just mount C to your Linux directory where everything is. Go to that. Go to and then there we are. So that's kind of getting back into Turbo Pascal after you've left. All right, so I guess we're ready to start writing our program now. So we will do an Alt F, save. Let's create a new directory, actually. All right, so we got our file created. We can start coding. All right, let's start out with getting some constants in there. We looked up our gravitational constant G.
whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau. Se la pasa whatsappeando, guau, guau, guau.
Yes, I'm not kidding. That was painful. I think it's on par with having to. The only thing recently I've done that approaches that level of discomfort is having to get a shell session into a Docker container and use VI for tuning in a bash script or something like that. But as you can see, I got no help whatsoever from the editor, and so I have to, I suspect my fondness for this was, number one, these features didn't exist at the time. Autocomplete, syntax highlighting even. You'd be surprised at how much that helps, especially if you're a little rusty on a language like I am with Pascal. It would have been a real help to at least know that I hit on keywords. But I'll tell you why I think what sticks out in my mind the most, and that's the debugging capabilities of this platform or this IDE. So especially in most everything was some flavor of this. Now this is stripped down. I don't even know if this is right. I basically built this out because I knew it looped. I knew we had this pass by reference procedure in here where we might have to jump out into the different levels. of this calculation. It's kind of a it's a longer procedure than I would normally write. So let's take a look at what I remember. And I remember being able to debug. And so I could add watches like the acceleration here. And I'm actually already executing the program, and I jumped in and added a watch on this program in the process of stepping into it. So the light colored bar, that's the point that I'm at in the execution. And if I step forward with F7, so let's just step in. So I would have gotten away with that if I hadn't played around with the source. But as I step through with F7, sooner or later I'm going to hit that, and say I wanted to go ahead and add another break, another watch. I'll add, and just being able, just like that, I'm able to add another watch. And just being able to step through programs like this, especially, considering this is a lot of the this is just a stripped down version of a lot of the programs I would be writing in that era. And this was kind of huge. I could go in and say, hey, I want even down in the and so, that was a big thing for me, especially if I had something that took, tens of thousands of iterations for me to figure out that there was something wrong at the end. I could look at each step and kind of know that what I was doing was at least progressing through the code the way I expected it to. And that was huge. I mean, like the mainframe programs that I wrote, you basically write them in an editor, submit them as a job, wait for your printout to be handed to you from the line printer just to figure out you did something completely wrong, and then have to repeat. That was a painfully long process. So this was hugely powerful, and I think that's the reason this IDE has, kind of that, that place in my heart. Really, pretty much everything else in it is fairly painful from a modern standpoint, but this was huge to me. So one other point that I wanted to make is that this thing will create a DOS executable, and at times that was a lot faster to run, especially if I had a program all laid out, which you did from the Fortran program as well, Fortran compiler as well. And I think the reason that a lot of the engineering community was pushing back on Pascal at the time was there was, you could write a Fortran program on your PC, and maybe the floating point, maybe the reliability of the floating point operations weren't all that great on a PC, but you could run that same code on a mainframe, and the floating point accuracy was verified. I don't think at the time Pascal was, or at least the popular thought was that it's not, and nobody wanted to risk it. That was the thing, is like, especially in aerospace engineering, they're very risk averse. So yeah, so that's Turbo Pascal 5.5 for what it's worth. It was good that I kind of went back and looked at it. It's you think about things. Honestly, I thought it was better than what it was, because you have these your overall thoughts were positive for it, and then you come back and you assess it as a, in 2024, when it was released in 1989, and it's really not a fair comparison. But it's kind of nice to see what it really was. And I'm glad I did it. It was fun. I promise I'm back on the main project. We're going to get this full scale app built. And that's probably my last little diversion for a while. The next video will be right back on the stretch project. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.